name is Abraham Sapien.
No. There is no such name.
Abe Sapien was an aquatic humanoid fish creature that was discovered by the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense. Abe Sapien underwent a series of fascinating events after being discovered, emerging from the edge of being dissected by the Bureau to becoming one of their most incredible agents. In this video, we will explore the adventures Abe Sapien encountered as he dug deep into his past to learn the truth about his life. We'll also analyze the course of events that caused Abe Sapien's anxiety about his peculiar appearance to fade away. Without further ado, let's dive into Abe Sapien's captivating investigations of several paranormal phenomena all around the world. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. Now, it's one small click for you, but for us it means an awful lot, so thank you very much. Now, let's begin. Abe Sapien's tragic origin explored. Langdon Everett Call, a Victorian scientist who was also a businessman, was associated with an occult organisation called Owen's Society, which considered the origin of life forms from the sea. After extracting a peculiar sea creature resembling a jellyfish, Call and his colleagues carried out an obscure dark ritual on it. The act caused a horrendous impact, transforming Call into a peculiar Ithaco-Sapien. The members of the society then concealed the growing Ithaco-Sapien body inside of a tube of water and stashed it in the secret laboratory underneath St. Trinian's Hospital in Washington, D.C. After some time, they were forced to vacate the laboratory in view of the violent outburst of the American Civil War. After several years, some plumbers accidentally uncovered Call in the forgotten laboratory. With the discovery of an amphibious man, the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense immediately caught hold of the creature and named it Abraham, aka Abe Sapien, with regard to the message April 14th, 1865, the date of President Abraham Lincoln's assassination, written on his tube. Abraham Sapien remained in a state of dormancy until the BPRD scientists applied shock to him. As Abraham Sapien gained consciousness, he appeared to have an idea of what was happening around him. Abe had heard one of the scientists discussing with his peers whether to continue resuscitating him or jump to dissecting him, owing to their numerous failed attempts at awakening him. Abe even seemed to remember the terrifying events of his transition. Soon he was put through rigorous experiments as the scientists of the Bureau strived to learn about him in depth. Seeing Abe's pathetic condition, Hellboy, an agent of the Bureau, felt pity for him. Hellboy requested the scientists to stop examining Abe, following which he was released. Abe was initially in a state of confusion when he came out of the tank he was closed in, but he soon began to speak English with great fluency upon coming into human contact. With time, Abe knitted a close bond with Hellboy and other Bureau agent Liz Sherman. Hellboy soon persuaded Trevor Bruttenholm, the director of the Bureau, to permit Abe to become part of their minor field activities. Under Trevor's allowance, Abe soon became Hellboy's constant companion and got the opportunity to learn about the outside world since he'd lost all his memories of the past. Abe used to wear a trench coat, hat, gloves and occasionally sunglasses with a fake beard when he used to step outside. Following the occurrence of numerous incidences following Hellboy's departure from the Bureau in 2001, Hellboy gained enough confidence to abandon his disguise. Some major story arcs of Abe Sapien. Abe Sapien getting possessed by a ghost. In May 1994, Abe Sapien ventured into the ancient and eerie Cavendish Hall with Hellboy and Liz Sherman to scrutinise the bizarre death of Trevor Bruttenholm by an unusual frog-like creature. In the hall, they stumbled upon Mrs. Cavendish, who was actually being used as a decoy by the immortal monk Grigory Rasputin. As the conversation with Miss Cavendish proved fruitless, Abe started inspecting the premises of the hall and he found the surroundings submerged underwater due to the prolonged sinking of the land it was built on. He leapt from a bedroom window into the dark, gloomy lake full of thick mist. After a while, Abe saw two deformed Cavendish sons and their dead mother fading away in the water, and he began to get scared. Despite feeling a small sense of affinity towards these creatures, Abe got spooked and he stepped backwards in reflex, bumping into an old room with the dead body of the founder of the Cavendish line, Elihu Cavendish, who had established the Cavendish Hall on the island as the family manor. All of a sudden, Abe was possessed by the spirit of the long-dead Elihu Cavendish. Elihu was a compeer of Langdon Call, who had assassinated the insane monk Rasputin, preventing his plans to unleash the Ogdru Jahad to destroy the world. Ogdru Jahad were the dragons of Revelation destined to end the world, according to the heavenly messengers mentioned in apocalyptic literature. Grigory Rasputin, a fictional villain and worshipper of the Ogdru Jahad, was almost immortal, as he was resurrected by the Ogdru Jahad every time he died. Soon, the possessed Abe speared Rasputin him with a harpoon, foiling his attempts at summoning the 7 gods of chaos and awakening the monstrous demonic entity Saduhem, who was supposed to act as the conduit between him and the Ogdu Jihad. After breaking free from Cavendish's spirit and getting back to his senses, Abe helped Liz in escaping the place while Hellboy dealt with his archenemy Rasputin on his terms. Liz Sherman ultimately set the entire place on fire with her newly controlled fire powers. Abe Sapien getting warned about an impending disaster. Following the Cavendish Hall mission, Abe and his fellow companions Hellboy and Liz Sherman were assigned to another task alongside other agents of the Bureau. They were instructed to survey 3 separate sites, one of which was possibly the castle of a vampire called Vladimir Jurescu, who was to be revived the following full moon night by his Nazi followers who had stolen his corpse. Abe was allocated to the first team with Agent Clark to inspect the second site of suspicion. When Abe started investigating the Sentes castle with his mission partner Clark, they observed a vast explosive burst emerging from the distant Jurescu castle. After finding nothing in the Sentes castle, the duo went to a dilapidated church in the nearby Romanian town after tracing Hellboy's location through his tracking belt signal in the area. And as they came across a reverend holding Hellboy's tracking belt, the duo understood that they had fallen into a trap. Before figuring out a way to escape, the duo fell through the floor of crumbling tiles onto giant pointed spikes. Although Clark was heavily injured, Abe managed not to get impaled. Later, he encountered the vengeful spirit of the dead Rasputin, who cursed him in the basement of the church. The ghost of Rasputin prognosticated that Abe Sapien would be speared to death in the future as a punishment for Rasputin's murder. Shortly afterwards, the severed head of a local priest warned Abe about the impending doom. Abe Sapien saved Roger, the homunculus. After being rescued from the church in Romania by the BPRD, Liz was deprived of her pyrokinesis power upon losing it to a homunculus she had bumped into in Romania and consequently was on the verge of dying. Abe stayed with an ailing Liz till her last breath at the hospital in Romania. After Trevor's death a few years previous, Liz's demise posed a serious blow to Abe and severely impacted him. But fortunately, Liz was soon brought back to life as Hellboy forced the homunculus he nicknamed Roger to sacrifice his life by returning Liz's stolen powers and reviving her. After a while, Abe overheard the interaction between 2 scientists who were preparing to anatomize the body of the departed homunculus. After recalling his previous nightmarish experiences of the experiments conducted on him by the Bureau in the same manner, Abe decided to save the homunculus. As soon as the scientists left the room, Abe extracted the building's electricity and directed it to Roger in an attempt to revive him through a tremendously strong electric shockwave. The entire building was badly damaged, but Roger came to life once again and shortly after joined the Bureau. Abe felt a sense of relief when Liz too recovered, and the addition of a newly rejuvenated Roger to the BPRD team made him even happier as well. Abe Sapien's dreadful encounter with the demon Ualac. Abe and Hellboy set forth on an expedition to Scotland in May 1999 to analyse the robbery of a box and a collection of tongs that originally belonged to a blacksmith who later became to be known as Saint Dunstan. Ualac, a demon who attempted to seduce Dunstan in the disguise of a woman, failed to fool him. Saint Dunstan grasped the demon's ankles with his tongs, struck the demon's head on the anvil and brutally beat him. Dunstan then trapped Ualac in a box and sealed it with sacred symbols. When a satanic couple, Count Guarino and his wife Bologna, acquired the box, they used its lock to release the demon. But upon liberation, Ualac converted Guarino into a monkey and possessed his spouse. When Ualac attempted to curse the sorcerer Igor Bromhead, who delivered the box to Guarino, Igor protected himself using a charm and turned the demon into a servant. When Abe and Hellboy reached them in search of the missing box, Guarino, who had been transformed into a monkey, shot and inflicted tremendous pain on Abe Sapien. Elsewhere, Ualac and his master Igor hatched a plot to trap Hellboy and take the crown of the apocalypse from him. Using Hellboy's actual name, Igor gained power over him, and using a spell he exhibited Hellboy's concealed crown, which Ualac then retrieved. Afterwards, when Igor tried to run away from the spot, he was chased by Abe Sapien. The Saint Dunstan charm that was worn by Igor, which had prohibited Ualac's curse on him, shattered during their chase, and consequently, Igor was turned into a lizard. Afterwards, Abe would fully recover from the wounds imposed on him by Guarino, and elsewhere Hellboy started feeling guilty for failing to stop Ualac from stealing the crown and becoming the beast of the apocalypse. In a distressed state of mind, burdened upon playing an unintentional role in the apocalypse, Hellboy left the Bureau in 2001. His departure and Liz's resignation from the Bureau to master her powers at a monastery in the Ural Mountains made Abe feel quite lonely. A lonesome Abe began to consider his own withdrawal from the Bureau, but continued to work as a field agent. Abe Sapien rescues his dear companion, Liz Sherman. In 2002, when Liz's spirit visited and implored him to save her, Abe travelled promptly to the monastery where she had gone to study with the company of new agents Johann Kraus and Roger, as well as their field director Kate Corrigan. On reaching the monastery, the team was horrified upon finding Liz in a lifeless state among numerous murdered monks. To liberate Liz's soul from the primordial race, the servants of the left, living beneath the earth, who had captured her to magnify their powers, Abe took upon the post of the team's leader. After successfully saving Liz's spirit and restoring her back to life, Liz and Abe's platonic relationship increased exponentially. Liz then rejoined the Bureau and worked in many paranormal inspections far and wide in Abe's company. Abe Sapien's first time travel trip to the past. A strange fungal version of the Sadhu Hem, which was presumably destroyed, was later discovered in the tumble-down Cavendish Hall. In July 2004, when the beast managed to escape from a BPRD lab in New Jersey, Abe and his team embarked on tracing its location. They soon encountered Humbert T. Jones, who was known as the West Virginia Miracle Boy in Michigan, misusing the Sadhu Hem's fungus to transmute into frog-like creatures. Upon thoroughly examining Jones's house, when Abe unearthed a shrine to Rasputin, he immediately understood the involvement of the vindictive spirit of Rasputin behind the menace of the frog monsters. But Jones abruptly emerged out of nowhere and pierced Abe with a spear, fulfilling Rasputin's earlier forecast. At that moment of Abe's death, his spirit teleported back into the past, back to 1865. Abe arrived at an exquisite old temple and noticed a mysterious, unfamiliar sea creature. He witnessed the temple crumbling into a ramshackle architecture as centuries passed. Abe saw the animal transform into an egg-like structure and watched a man in a diving suit take it to a submarine. Abe, bewildered, suddenly found himself then walking through the corridors of St. Trinian's Hospital in Washington. When Abe entered the secret laboratory of the Owens Society at the vault of the building, it was raining frogs outside. Abe found Langdon Everett Call and other society members conducting some ritual on the egg, in response to which it disintegrated into dust in Call's hands. On seeing Abe, who was visible to the others, Call was panic-stricken. A petrified Call assumed Abe to be the evil entity who had come to punish him for his experiments with the egg. In no time, Abe's spirit was absorbed into Call's body. Call's eyes turned white, he became dizzy and blacked out. Abe witnessed Call's last moments and the chaos that followed his transition. Abe saw the worried society members whom he considered to be involved in Abraham Lincoln's assassination leaving the unconscious Call. They decided to return to the lab after the end of the American Civil War, when the ambience would be safer. Suddenly, Abe returned to Michigan in the original timeline, the year 2004. Despite getting stabbed in the chest, Abe recovered exceedingly quickly within a few weeks. Although his trip to the past didn't bring back any memories, he learned a new name, Langdon Everett Call. Abe Sapien's encounter with Langdon Everett Call's wife's spirit. Abe was determined to unveil his mysterious past life and began researching the name Langdon Everett Call, whom he had seen in his vision at the time of his near-death experience. In his quest for self-identification, Abe travelled to Rhode Island, where his version of Call had lived with his wife, Edith Howard. Abe learned that Edith, who was severely depressed by the lack of her husband's presence owing to his work, had drowned herself in the ocean. In the desolate and empty house, Abe encountered Edith's ghost, who expressed her desire to live with him in a dream world, but Abe helped her acknowledge the harsh reality of her death and that it was impossible for them to be together. Abe did succeed, though, in freeing Edith finally from her long-held grief. Abe Sapien's prophecy. After Abe's encounter with the ghost of Edith, his behaviour became strange. Abe Sapien distanced himself from friends and colleagues and shifted to a standard way of dressing contrary to his unconventional clothing. He began to talk like a person from 100 years ago, whose identity was only known in bits and pieces to him. His erratic behaviour concerned Kate, who advised him to consult a counsellor. He ignored this suggestion, though. When the northern United States was attacked by a growing population of frog monsters, Abe's loss of interest in the Bureau work left him with painful repercussions as Roger was killed. Landis Pope, the CEO of the Zinco Corporation, used the mantle of the Black Flame to unleash the wicked frog-like entities and killed Roger, who had tried to stop him. Kat the Hem, one of the children of Ogdru Dahad, was summoned out of the earth by the necromantic spells cast by Landis Pope and the frog monsters. Her arrival on Earth was an indication of the impending doom, similar to how the Sadhu Hem's advent was predicted to give rise to the plague of frogs. It was then disclosed that that being the Black Flame, Landis Pope was destined to summon Cathu-Hem on Earth, but to Pope's horror, he was captured as soon as Cathu-Hem stepped onto Earth. Pope's hopes of harnessing the powers of Cathu-Hem for his personal gains were torn apart as the frog monsters were revealed to be in Cathu-Hem's control instead of his. After much struggle, Liz Sherman finally succeeded in burning Cathu-Hem to cinders using an antique relic. Cathu-Hem's demolition put an end to the plague of frogs, but Liz was arrested by the frog monsters and forcefully taken to the remains of the deceased Cathu-Hem. Meanwhile, Pope Landis came into contact with the King of Fear, the ruler of the subterranean creatures of the underground, called the Servant of the Left Hand. The King of Fear extended his allegiance to the Black Flame. They joined forces to establish their reign worldwide by transferring the spirits of the Ogdru-Hem into the frog monsters with the technology of the Golden Men. In a frenzy of rage, when Abe rushed to the battleground upon hearing the news of his departed friend Roger, he survived a deadly blow as he led a BPRD team, and as the Black Flame's need for the King of Fear was now over, Pope backstabbed him. But Abe was ultimately saved as Liz destroyed Pope and his group in a massive explosion. Pope's soul was imprisoned in the crystalline cell of the Ogdru Jihad, but revived by his former second-in-command, Isaiah Marston, using Zinco Corporation's assets. Upon resurrection, Pope reconnected with his Black Flame persona and began to wreak havoc on Earth with numerous liberated Ogdru-Hems from the dark corners of the underworld. Later defeated by a strengthened Liz, the Black Flame declared Abe to be the first of a new race of men who would play an instrumental role in the extermination of the human race. Abe was outraged by this claim, but he fell into a daze and moved closer to examine the Ogdru-Hem that had been given to him by Pope. In the meantime, Liz saw a vision of the future where the BPRD's attempts to save the mortal race of humans proved futile. To Liz's horror, in the debris of the team's aircraft, she came across the photographs of her team members where Abe Sapien appeared to be majorly mutated and bestial. Abe's demonic appearance had lost every bit of humanity in this dream. Thereafterwards, during the events of BPRD Hell on Earth, Abe Sapien fell into a prolonged coma for 4 months after he'd been pierced by the bullet of a teenager named Phoenix. Being placed upon life support, Abe finally managed to recuperate, but his looks had turned drastically unpleasant in comparison to his previous version. According to a prophecy, his animalistic appearance had increased suspicion from the BPRD members who doubted his possibility of being the cause of the forthcoming apocalypse. Considering the growing distrust coming from the Bureau members around him, Abe Sapien fled in search of answers. Abe Sapien in the Hellboy movies franchise. In the first Hellboy film released in 2004, the newly recruited agent John Myers was shown getting introduced to Abe Sapien by Professor Broom, who further elaborated the significance of Abe's name to Myers. By using his mind-reading psychic powers, Abe scanned Meyer and learned about him. On Abe's first mission in the movie, as Hellboy retaliated against a reproductive demon named Samiel, Abe studied him to be helping Hellboy in the long run. Soon enough, upon reawakening, the devilish Rasputin and his 2 Nazi henchmen sought to use Hellboy in their endeavor to destroy the world. When Hellboy escaped after assassinating the first Samiel, Abe and Professor Broom inspected the murder location. The following day, when Abe examined several eggs of the deceased Samiel in the overflowing sewage water, he was ambushed by a few different Samiels. After somehow surviving these strikes, Abe was seen spending the rest of his time in the film regaining his vigor in a health tank. In the second film of the Hellboy franchise, entitled Hellboy 2: The Golden Army, released in 2004, in one of the battles where Abe was fighting a demon accompanied by Hellboy and his girlfriend Liz Sherman, Abe accidentally touched Liz's stomach and learned of her pregnancy. Afterwards, Abe fell in love with the film's antagonist, Prince Nuada's sister, Princess Ualac. Prince Nuada intended to reawaken the Golden Army and dominate the world. Prince Nuada captured his sister after tracking her down in the Bureau. Nuada then attempted to kill his sister's love interest, Abe, but failed upon Hellboy's intervention. Nuada stabbed Hellboy in the heart with his spear and promised to free Nuala from his custody as soon as Abe delivered the missing crown piece capable of awakening the army. When Abe tried to remove the spear from Hellboy and was unable to do so, he realized that only Prince Nuada could do it. Soon enough, Abe Sapien found the crown piece inside one of Princess Nuala's beloved books, and he hid the piece from everyone. Thereafter, Hellboy, Abe and Liz and a professional BPRD agent named Schmidt secretly traveled to Ireland, where they found the entrance to the chamber of the Golden Army. After a demon called Shaman healed Hellboy, the revelation of Liz's pregnancy with Hellboy's child motivated Hellboy to keep on fighting. Having found Prince Ualac, Abe handed over the crown to the prince to protect his love interest, the princess. The prince used the piece to revive the slumbering army, but upon seeing his brother on the verge of killing Hellboy once again, Princess Ualac stabbed herself, killing her brother as well. A heartbroken Abe Sapien was filled with remorse upon his lover's sacrifice. He then quit the bureau alongside Liz and Hellboy, lamenting her death. What made Abe Sapien so powerful? Abe's inherent fondness of water resulted in his expertise in swimming. His ability to be able to breathe both on land and in water was a unique attribute. Abe Sapien's accuracy at shooting projectile weapons made him a skilled marksman, proving him to be one of the most proficient BPRD agents. He also had enhanced healing properties which helped him survive getting speared in the chest, being fired upon with gunshots on multiple occasions, being physically tormented by a chimpanzee, falling on deadly stakes, and numerous other fatal incidences. Hence, Abe Sapien had exceptional durability with respect to the great limit of his endurance. Abe was also adept at telepathy. His superhuman strength and distinctive capabilities made him immensely powerful overall. Abe Sapien's exceptional hand-to-hand combat skills and high intellect made him a formidable opponent. Abe Sapien in other media. Abe Sapien appeared in 2 Hellboy animated films, namely Hellboy Sword of Storms and Hellboy Blood and Iron. The character's animated version closely resembled his comic book counterpart. Abe Sapien didn't use any breathing apparatus to survive underwater, and he had no psychic abilities, but Abe's substantial strength and enhanced reflexes proved him a deadly rival. In Hellboy animated Sword of Storms, Abe and Liz got involved in a plane crash and fell into the ocean below. After saving Liz's life by providing her with oxygen, they discovered themselves stranded on an island. Afterwards, they came to blows with a dragon and strived to survive a magical hurricane. Abe was also seen as a prominent character in the video game Hellboy: The Science of Evil, where Doug Jones reprised his role. Marvelous verdict. Langdon Everett Call was roughly in his 70s at the initiation of his transformation into the amphibious Abe Sapien. Still, despite being trapped in a water tube for 113 years in this transition, Abe looked pretty young. This indicates the sheer possibility of Abe's powers to age very slowly, yet the certainty of this capability remains to be unfurled. Conjecture of Abe's evil conversion owing to the Black Flame's assertion and Liz's vision of an inhumane, beastly version of Abe Sapien also remains a concern, which could become an exciting mystery explored in future storylines. Abe's immortality is debatable on account of the fact that he had successfully revived after dying on multiple occasions. Hence, many more aspects of this highly mysterious character are left to unfold, and we are looking forward to it. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't done so already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
This should cover your tail, friend. Reliquary. Straight from the Vatican.